Turn to the book of Matthew. Matthew. We'll get to Luke later. And believe it or not, we will get to 1 Kings, so keep your finger there. Or remember where it is. We actually are studying 1 Kings. Doesn't seem that way yet, does it? Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22. And Jesus speaks about these two callings. There's a verse of Scripture that is probably familiar to you, familiar to many who might not even be believers. Many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. And that actually appears twice in the Gospel of Matthew. 2 different times, and addressing 2 different things. Matthew chapter 22, we'll start reading at verse 1. And Jesus answered and spoke to them again by parables, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son, and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding, and they weren't willing to come. And again he sent out other servants, saying, Tell those who are invited, See, I've prepared my dinner, my oxen, fatted cattle are killed, everything's ready, come to the wedding. But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his business. And the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them. But when the king heard about it, he was furious. And he sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. Then he said to his servants, The wedding's ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found, both bad and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he called a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. So he said to him, Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. And the king said to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, take him away, cast him into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. Say what? What's Jesus speaking about here? Well, the context of this is Jesus in Jerusalem, speaking during the last week of his physical life, walking on this earth, just days before the crucifixion. And he is continually teaching in the temple. And there are the crowds because of the Passover season, and there were many scribes and Pharisees, teachers of the law, the high priest. They were all coming and listening. And again, Jesus kept telling them, look, you're missing the day of your visitation. This was prophesied many years ago, this exact day of this week that the Messiah, me, would come. But because of your presuppositions, what you expect the Messiah to be, a big king riding in on a big white horse, you're missing it. And he prophesies many times about what God has done and what God will do. And that's what part of this is. It says a king was going to have a wedding feast for his son. The king, that's God the Father. The son, that's Jesus Christ. The bride, well, that's us. The church. God's chosen. And it says he invited certain guests. Now, in those days, there was no such thing as refrigeration. There was no such thing as Costco to go and get your prepared meat and go and cook it quickly. But rather, when you were going to have a wedding for a large group of people, it took some real preparation, and you weren't really sure exactly what time the wedding was going to be, because you had to gather all the animals in and slaughter them and prepare them and cook them and do all this stuff. So they would invite everybody and say, hey, there's going to be a wedding. It's going to be around this time. And then when everything was just about ready, then they would send the servants out and go, now's time to come. Come on, the wedding feast is ready. Everything's prepared. And that's what the king did. And those who had been invited ahead of time said, not interested. Hey, I'm kind of busy. And worse, he's speaking about the nation of Israel, who had been invited, who had been prepared for centuries for the coming of the Messiah. And when the Messiah came, they said, we're not interested. Hey, you don't look like what we were expecting. I'll wait for the next guy. And so the king says, all right, Go out into the highways and byways and invite anyone who is willing to come. And that's what's happened since the day of Pentecost. Jesus said to his disciples, go into all the world, preach to all creatures, make disciples of all men, invite everyone. Jesus said, all who are weary and heavy laden, come unto me. Everybody's invited. And so they came. But then there's this guy, when the wedding feast comes, there were garments that were given out. The wedding garment. And the king walks in and goes, what's with this guy? He doesn't have the wedding garment on. What that's talking about is that's talking about how we are given entrance and the ability to come into God's presence. That's through the righteousness of Christ, which is given to us as clothing. We are clothed with the righteousness of Christ. We don't come on our own merit. We come on Christ's merit. He says, how did you get in here outside of... did you think you could really come into the wedding feast on your own? On your own righteousness? And he kicks them out. He says, many are called, but few are chosen. What's he talking about there? Well, this whole thing is talking about the call to salvation. This is the calling of salvation. The calling to be seated at the wedding feast of the Lamb. And every one of you in this room is invited. Every one of you. And it is your choice as to whether you will go. It's your choice. My son is getting married in, I guess it's about 3 weeks now. 4 weeks, 3 weeks. It's March 4th, or April 4th. It was March 4th. I missed it, but it's April 4th. I better not miss it because I'm performing the ceremony, so I better be there. April 4th. And they've sent out all kinds of invitations. And all those people are invited, but it's their choice whether they show up or not. It's your choice whether you show up or not unto the Lord, unto his wedding feast. It's your choice. Many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but who are the chosen? The chosen are those who respond to the call. There are those who come to the wedding. They're the chosen ones.